You've told yourself to stop overthinking, probably today, maybe more than once, and it didn't work. Because it never works. Not because you lack discipline. Not because you're anxious by nature. Not because you need to meditate more or think more positively or just let it go. It didn't work because overthinking isn't a thought problem. It's a biological alarm. And you can't think your way out of an alarm. You have to turn it off at the source. That's what this video is about. Not tips, not mindset shifts. The actual mechanism behind why your brain gets stuck in loops, and the specific things that actually interrupt it. Here's what's actually happening when you can't stop. Your brain has a network that activates whenever you're not focused on a specific external task. Neuroscientist Marcus Raichle at Washington University discovered it in the early 2000s. He called it the default mode network, the DMN. This network is not your enemy. In fact, it does some of your most important mental work. Memory consolidation, creative thinking, future planning, processing experiences, making sense of your relationships. When your DMN is running well, it's actually one of your brain's most valuable systems. But here's where it goes wrong. The DMN doesn't run in a vacuum. It takes its cues from another part of your brain, the amygdala, your threat detection system. And when your amygdala flags something as unresolved, a difficult conversation, a decision you haven't made, a relationship that feels uncertain, something you said 3 years ago that your brain still hasn't filed away, the DMN locks onto it, and it cycles. Not because you chose to think about it, because the amygdala's threat signal is still active, and your brain is designed to keep processing an active threat until it's resolved. Psychologist Matthew Killingsworth at Harvard found that people spend nearly 47% of their waking hours thinking about something other than what they're doing. And those wandering thoughts, almost always, are not happy ones. They pull toward problems, regrets, worries, things that feel unresolved. Your brain isn't overthinking because something is wrong with you. It's overthinking because it's doing exactly what it was designed to do. It just has too many unresolved threat signals running at once. So what does a DMN running on unresolved threat signals actually look like in your day? Because it's not just the obvious looping thoughts. It goes deeper than that. Effect 1. You can't be fully present in anything. When the DMN is overactive, it keeps pulling your mind back even when you're trying to focus on something else. You're in a conversation, but you're not really there. You're watching something, but you're not really watching it. You're trying to work, but a thought keeps surfacing every few minutes and pulling you away. This isn't distraction. It's your brain insisting that the unresolved thing needs attention. It's the mental equivalent of a notification that won't go away until you deal with what triggered it. Effect 2. Your sleep is being hijacked. The DMN is most active when external stimulation drops, which means the moment your head hits the pillow and the room goes quiet, your brain finally has the space it's been waiting for to run those loops. This is why you can be exhausted all day and then suddenly wide awake at 11 p.m. thinking about something that happened 2 weeks ago. It's not anxiety keeping you up. It's an overactive DMN finally getting airtime. And sleep deprivation then keeps the amygdala more reactive the next day, which creates more unresolved threat signals, which creates more overthinking. The loop feeds itself. Comment which effect resonates most right now. 1, 2, 3, or 4. I want to know which one is costing you the most. Effect 3. Your decision-making is deteriorating. When the DMN is running on threat signals, it biases your thinking toward risk and negative outcomes. Researchers call this the negativity bias in rumination. Your brain isn't just looping randomly, it's specifically scanning for what could go wrong, which means the decisions you make while you're overthinking are systematically skewed. You avoid things you shouldn't avoid. You catastrophize outcomes that are unlikely. You stay stuck because every option gets filtered through a threat lens. Effect 4. It's physically exhausting, and you don't know why. Mental rumination burns glucose. It activates your stress response. Your cortisol stays elevated. Your body thinks you're under threat even when nothing external is happening. This is why overthinkers often feel exhausted without having done anything. They've been running a biological stress response for hours, not because of external pressure, because of internal loops their brain wouldn't switch off. So why doesn't just stop thinking about it work? Because the instruction is aimed at the wrong level of the system. Telling your DMN to stop looping is like telling a smoke alarm to stop beeping because there's no fire. The alarm doesn't know there's no fire. It's responding to a signal. And until that signal changes, the alarm keeps going. Most overthinking advice targets the thoughts. Journal about them, reframe them, challenge them, distract yourself from them. None of these turn off the underlying threat signal. They just give you something to do while the alarm keeps going. The amygdala doesn't respond to logic. It responds to resolution and to the body, which means the interventions that actually work are not cognitive. They're physiological, and they're structural. They address the unresolved loops directly rather than trying to think around them. You can't think your way out of overthinking, but you can interrupt it at the biological level. Here's how. 3 specific interventions. Each one targets the problem at the level it actually exists. Fix 1. Close the open loops. On paper, not in your head. Remember the default mode video. Your brain treats incomplete tasks and unresolved situations as active threats. Open loops trigger the same DMN activation as genuine danger. The amygdala doesn't distinguish between, I haven't replied to that email, and I'm being chased. The fix isn't thinking about the open loops more carefully. It's writing them down and assigning each one a next action or a deliberate decision to let it go. When something is externalized, written, scheduled, or consciously set aside, your brain registers it as resolved. The threat signal drops. The DMN loop stops. This is not journaling. This is not therapy. It's a 10-minute end-of-day brain dump where you list everything that's running in the background and either assign it a time to deal with or consciously close it. Do it every night for 1 week and notice what happens to the loops at 11 p.m. Fix 2. Move your body before you try to move your thoughts. The amygdala's threat signal is a physiological state. It lives in the body, not just the mind, which means the fastest way to interrupt it is through the body, not through the mind. Exercise, specifically rhythmic, moderately intense movement like walking, running, or cycling, reduces amygdala reactivity directly. It increases BDNF, which supports hippocampal function and emotional regulation. It drops cortisol, and it gives the nervous system a genuine signal that the threat has passed, because your physiology is now in a state that is incompatible with sustained threat activation. Even 20 minutes of brisk walking measurably reduces rumination, not because you distracted yourself, but because you physically changed the biological state the overthinking was running in. You cannot ruminate at the same intensity in a calm nervous system. The substrate for it has changed. Fix 3. Use physiological interrupts to break the loop in the moment. When a loop starts and you can feel it pulling, there are 2 evidence-based interrupts that work faster than any cognitive technique. The first is the physiological sigh. 2 sharp inhales through the nose, followed by a long, slow exhale through the mouth. Do it 3 times. It directly activates the parasympathetic nervous system, reducing amygdala reactivity within seconds. We covered this in the deep sleep video. It's the same mechanism. The second is sensory grounding, deliberately directing your attention to 5 things you can physically sense right now. Not because distraction cures overthinking, but because sensory engagement shifts the DMN out of self-referential processing and into present-moment external engagement. The loop breaks, not permanently, but long enough to interrupt the momentum. Use these as a bridge. The loop starts. You interrupt it physiologically. Then you address the underlying open loop with fix 1. The interrupt buys you the window. The close buys you the resolution. Here's what I want you to take from this. Overthinking is not a character flaw. It's not proof that you're anxious or weak or too sensitive or not disciplined enough. It's a default mode network running on too many unresolved signals with too little physiological regulation. That's a biological description, not a personality verdict. And biological problems have biological solutions. Close the open loops. Move your body before you try to manage your mind. Use physiological tools to interrupt the moment, not cognitive ones. The loops don't stop because you decide to stop them. They stop because you remove the conditions that were keeping them running. You were never the problem. The signal was. Which of the 3 fixes are you starting with tonight? Closing your open loops, moving your body, or the physiological interrupt? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. If you're not here to stay average, subscribe. And if you want to understand what's happening to your attention when those loops don't just stay in your head, but start pulling you away from everything you're trying to focus on, that video is right here. I'll see you there.